Hi, welcome back to the channel. I'm Michelle, and today I want to do a homeschool budget check-in. Now, I have my homeschool budget laid out for what I used last year. This is our second year homeschooling. I have a 10-year-old and a 6-year-old, so a 4th grader and a 1st grader. And I want to talk about my budget, and after I talk about it a little bit, I'm going to actually physically show you my budget. But I wanted to talk about homeschool budgeting because I think it's really important. In fact, it's a determining factor in homeschooling, what curriculum you can afford. And this will, of course, change depending on the ages of your kids, necessarily where you live in the country or in countries, shipping costs, things like that. There's a lot of variables and factors that determine the overall cost of homeschooling, and it can be different for every family. But I want to talk about it because, one, I think it's important to talk about the fact that we are spending money and that it does cost money to homeschool. I know a lot of people out there will say you can do it very cheaply, and frankly, I disagree. It is a cost. Now, we are a one-income family, and that is by choice, and I understand that is a privilege that I am able to stay home with my children. We do make certain lifestyle choices to accommodate that. We don't go on big vacations. We go camping, which is completely fine. We don't have tons of disposable income. So we live within a budget, not just in our homeschool, but we have a grocery budget. We have budgets set up to make sure we can accommodate me staying home with the kids and in turn homeschooling as well. So I think it's very easy, especially on social media, to constantly be seeing curriculum being talked about or reviewed or, frankly, sometimes pushed. And you feel, and I made a video about, what happens when you can't afford curriculum and things like that. But if we're constantly seeing that, we're coming into the season, we are at the end of February, we're coming into the season where people are going to start putting out their curriculum picks for next year, which I think is crazy. I don't even touch that till summer. But people are starting to get ideas what they're using for next year, so you're seeing a lot more curriculum videos coming out, people reviewing things, and it can be very tempting to see that next new shiny thing or something that's really trendy in the homeschool community and feel like you want that, or you're just in the middle of winter and you want to change it up. I totally get all those things. So we're being bombarded with a lot of images and videos on curriculum, and it can be very tempting to fill whatever need we need, whether that be we actually need a curriculum or we want to try something else or we're just bored with what we have. So I want to put this out here as kind of within that imagery and videos that there are people living within budgets. There are people that can't buy whatever they want. And even if you could, I think having boundaries when it comes to buying homeschool curriculum is good. So even if you don't live on a budget, I think this is a beneficial video, because even if I had all the resources I wanted available, that doesn't necessarily mean that the curriculum doesn't make your homeschool. The resources you use they're tools for your homeschool, right? So having those boundaries, so you're not just continually buying more things. And it can be very easy, especially when you have the justification that this is your child's education, to think that they need this. They need this science kit, or they need this out-school class, that sometimes we're trying to make up for other things by filling that cart, that Amazon cart or that Rainbow Resource cart. That it's okay to, if you're on a budget, it's okay not to buy everything. So that is my long rant into this video. I'm now going to show you a breakdown of everything I've spent so far for my 4th grader and 1st grader. Now, we are more than halfway through the year. We will finish up probably end of May, early June, and it's the end of February when I'm filming this. So the majority of our curriculum has been bought. I will talk about some of the things I do foresee us buying before the end of the school year. Now, we year round, so we kind of just continually go, but I would say the grade level changes most of the time after summer. So when normal August comes, we would be doing the next grade level. So I will talk about the things I foresee us purchasing before the end and the next school year. This is my budget. As you can see down here, I have many budgets: homeschool budget, Christmas budget, our regular normal budget, grocery budget, our renovation budget. So I am a big fan of budgeting. Like I said, we are single income, so I need to know where our money is going and how much we have left over. So right here, you're seeing last year. So this was my 9-year-old, my 5-year-old. Again, I will link that video up above if you want to see kind of how I broke that down. But here we are for this year. So this is my 9, so she's now 10-year-old, so 4th grade. And this is my 5, now 6-year-old, who is in 1st grade, and these are our group subjects. So let's start with here for my 4th grader. So I purchased All About Spelling 1 and 2 for her. IEW, you can see, is probably the most expensive thing I purchased this year, but it has worked really well for us. I do have a review when I talk about that. I'll link that above as well. She's working through Singapore Dimensions. This is the textbook, the workbook, the teacher's guide, and the test booklet. That is $72.14. This is Lightning Literature, grade 4. This is just for the teacher guide and the student guide. This does not include the readers. The Mud Trilogy that goes with Michael Clay Thompson. I did buy Michael Clay Thompson last year off eBay, but it did not come with the 3 books at the end of the series, so I picked that up at eBay. Word Ladders, Multiplication Workbook, and these are some of the books for the Lightning Literature that go with grade 4. Now, could I have borrowed some of these from the library? Yes, but what I found last year is sometimes it's hard if the book is checked out or they're reading it for a couple weeks at a time. I don't want to deal with the mess of trying to figure out where to get the book and delaying our schedule when really I can go on Thrift Books and it's not that expensive. So for the majority of the readers, I spent $49.50, and then I got the Borrower's Book new on Amazon, as you can see here. But I think this is completely reasonable to buy all the books for the year for her to read. And if my youngest daughter chooses to do Lightning Lit as she gets older, I will already have all the readers. So I think that's fine to pay for. So that is her core work. One thing I will say that we will most likely be purchasing before the end of the year is Dimensions 3B. So you'll see another $72 on this when the time comes to purchase that. So my 6-year-old, who is a 1st grader now, so these are the things I purchased for her. Dimensions KB, that was at the end of, so summer would have been when I purchased that. So I picked up 1A, she's flying through math. And I predict I will pick up 1B before the end of this school year. So you'll see another $70 for that, and that's the text, workbook, teacher guide, and test. I picked up some readers for her, and again, I have a video on that. I'll link it above. 1st grade readers. I bought those off Thrift Books for $56.15, and it's something like 13 readers and 2 practice books, or 11 practice books. Sorry, 11 readers and 2 practice books, and that was the price. Luckily, for All About Reading Level 2, there is a mom and a co-op that was willing to let me use it for free, so I greatly appreciate that because that saved me a lot of money right there. Then on to group. So this is things we do together. So for example, you see Torchlight down here. And these are, we did a human body study this past summer into fall, and these are some of the extra books I got from Thrift Books. This is the Hardcourt art book I got all grades 1 through 4. Same with health. I got Hardcourt health books from Thrift Books, 3rd and 4th grade for $12. History Unboxed for our Thanksgiving unit was $2.99. Thanksgiving books, and again, if you want to see what the specific books are, I do have a Thanksgiving video up, and that was from Birchmark Books, and that was $46. A photography book for our co-op that I bought, $4.19. Body books, and Sadler vocab. So this was all pretty much, besides History Unboxed, everything else was from Thrift Books. Torchlight, I had to get a couple things for that. So Shakespeare book I bought off Amazon, a toys book that I bought off Thrift Books. Curiosity Chronicles is the suggested history for Torchlight. And again, I bought the entire package audiobook for Early Modern Volume 1 and 2, Student Guide, Activity Guide. So this is the whole bundle here, was $128. And then just to buy Torchlight Level 3 was $38.25. Which, if you look here, the grand total I spent so far is $1,052.22. So over $1,000. And I did want to mention subscriptions down here. Now, my two kids get a Kiwi and a Panda crate. That is a gift from family members. So I don't include that in our homeschool budget because it's not coming out of it. Same with Generation Genius was a gift. So I did write down, the estimated price of what it would be. So for Generation Genius for 3 months, it was $104 or $34.95 a month with free shipping. But we don't actually pay that amount because they are gifts from family members. So as you can see here, last year, this was my total spent, almost $1,500. And the only thing that's going to change from this number is I predict we'll spend about $140 on the next level of math for both my first grader and fourth grader. So I'm happy that that number is lower than last year. I feel like I have a better handle on what I needed to buy opposed to what I could get from the library this year. I was a lot more selective, and I'm pleased with this amount. I know some people will be like, well, that's nothing. Some people will probably spend this amount in a month. But here's the thing. Last year I put down the cost of public school and private school. So for my kids to attend public school, it's about $120 yearly on different fees and things like that. Private school by me is about $3,200. It'd be $600 or $6,000 for both my kids to go. And people would look at that number and be like, oh, well, that homeschooling, you're saving so much more money. Well, I hate to break it to you, but there's no way we could afford private school. There's no way with our budget the way it is, we could afford to send both my kids to a private school. So although when you look at those two numbers, there's a significant savings. I don't want to diminish that this is a fair amount of money. To some people, it's probably nothing, but to us, it matters the amount of money that is coming out of our checking account and what's going through expenses. Now, I think these are important expenses, and we definitely prioritize certain things over others, but education is a priority in our house. So I don't feel bad about spending this amount of money, but I want to make it clear that it is a lot of money to spend, even if you don't personally see it that way. Over $1,000 in homeschooling resources and curriculum to me is a lot of money. It's more than I pay for my mortgage monthly. So, as you can see here, I do have a rough draft of what next year's curriculum will look like. And I'm starting to plug in numbers as I get an idea of what I want. But having this number, especially tracking it from year to year, because I do predict it will eventually start going up, especially since my oldest will be getting into middle school in a couple years. Things like science and language arts curriculum are just going to get more expensive. So having this idea of how much I'm spending yearly helps me kind of budget for the rest of the year. Now, I don't have a separate savings account or anything for homeschool stuff. We buy it as needed, and luckily we have enough extra left at the end of the month that's never been an issue, and I don't want to set up a separate savings account at this point. I think buying as we need is completely fine. I've talked about how I have kind of the checklist I go through before buying curriculum to kind of narrow it down so I'm not tempted by the shiny new curriculum that always comes out. One thing that I think is really a good suggestion, if you see something you like, write it down. I make my notes in OneNote. As you can see here, this is mine. Whenever I see something on YouTube, whenever I see something that somebody mentions that I know, that I find interesting, I will add it to this list. That way when I'm looking for something like an elective or a summer unit study, I will go to this list and see what out of the ideas I've come across that I think are interesting. Having a place to write it down, I think, is really important. That way you don't forget it. And because I do it online or on OneNote, it's saved forever. And I will just highlight the things I've actually used. And I think that's a good way to kind of curb the spending. If you really needed the curriculum, put it on your list, wait a while and see if you still want it in a week. So you can see here, there was a lot more field trip last year. We had a zoo membership, we had a museum membership, And the reason we didn't do it this year is because we went to the zoo 3 times last year, so that membership definitely paid for itself. And we went to the museum 3 times last year, and both those things are over 2 hours away from us. So I think this year we just kind of took a break from the the memberships for those things because we had done it so much in the past, and also my son was 2, turning 3 this year, so he was kind of disruptive, and it probably like long car rides and then walking around a museum would have been more of a hassle this year, so we took a break from those. But it's something I do think we will continue for the following year for field trip wise. Going to museums again, maybe trying some different museums and going back to the zoo. But that is everything I have spent so far for our homeschooling year for my 4th grader and 1st grader. So I hope that was helpful. And again, all families will be different, all budgets will be different, but I think it's good to put out there that a lot of us are dealing with things like budgets and sharing, what we have to work with and where we kind of have to prioritize our money. And something I did want to mention that is also important about keeping this budget is I keep a good record of what we're purchasing, which is helpful when it comes time to do taxes. Now, I know taxes are different in every state on what you can claim for homeschooling expenses and things like that. In the state I live in, the only thing you're allowed to claim on your taxes for homeschool expenses is consumable products. So like workbooks, things that they actually write in. So things like textbooks, books, like readers aren't counted. So for example, things like Singapore Dimensions Math. The only thing I can claim out of that bundle, that $70 bundle, would be the textbook and the workbook because those are physically written in and consumed. I can't claim the teacher guides. So you can see why breaking it down and keeping a good record of what I'm spending makes tax time a lot easier because I have this listed. I have the receipts kept in a separate folder in my desk. So I can really quick give my husband, when he's doing taxes, the amount that we spent on homeschooling curriculum, what we can claim on our taxes, and have the receipts readily available. So it makes everything just a little bit smoother on top of knowing, how much we're actually spending. So if you have any questions, leave them down below. If not, thank you for watching.